We're just going to introduce Lauren Maillian on the stage, please. Thank you.
Sorry, here. I was supposed to introduce Lauren. Okay, let's do this. It does make it look easy as a mother, and I bet you do have it all organized.
No. Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Lauren Maillian. Oh, this moves. This is kind of fun. I'm going to own the stage. This could be maybe not that exciting. Okay. Anyone who knows me in real life knows I'm a little bit of a goofball, so this whole thing of ownership is just so timely. Thank you, Shauna. I've actually messed up something. Hold on. Edit that out in the live stream. Or the archiving stream. And Crystal, thank you for sharing that story. And I think I'm now going to actually adopt that in my ownership philosophy, that 1 through 5 is going to be family. So I'm a single mom, for those of you who didn't catch that in the introduction. And Shauna has asked me to speak about the topic of ownership. This is actually a great example. So there is a woman that I sit on a board with here in New York at the Metropolitan Museum of Art named Audrey Smaltz. And she's been in the fashion world. Those of you in fashion know who Audrey is. And I will never forget, I co-chaired a big event at the Met last year. And I'm standing up there, and the mic is down here, and I kept doing this. And Audrey said to me afterwards, "You did a fabulous job. You look awesome. The room is packed. Temple of Dinder's packed. It's all great. Never, ever go down to the mic again." So you own the stage. You own how tall you are. You own who you are and the way that you come. And you stand proud in your skin. So I'm saying that to say I'm not going to lean down to the mic. But I think that this topic of ownership is really important. And it's important now. And I wrote a best-selling business book for women. I won't just say for our women, really, truly for all women, called The Path Redefined. And the subtitle of my book is Getting to the Top on Your Own Terms. And sometimes we get to places a little too soon in other people's eyes, and perhaps my book was a little too early on that topic to basically say, we can get to the top, women can own it, we can say that we want to be wealthy and powerful, and that we want to be proud of who we are, and that we want to have backbone and stand up for what we believe in. And I'm so happy that now it's finally cool and in vogue and Black Girl Magic, and that Google is hosting something. Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Dema. Thank you, Shauna. Black Woman and Genius. I don't know that we would have had this conversation a few years ago when I was sitting, learning to be a writer, learning to write every day, which was a very difficult task and not part of my personal story of disruption. That's kind of part of my milestone, is just on the journey. I may never tick that box again. But, I think the question, it's funny because there are few questions that we are asked by different sorts of people. And I think the question of ownership, of however you want to package that, whether it's how do I live the path redefined, how do I get to the top on my own terms, how do I stand proud in my skin, how do I stand tall with my big hair at work, how do I embrace who I am, I get that question, and I've gotten that question for the last 4.5 years from so many different women. They don't have to be Black, they don't have to be millennial, they don't have to be entrepreneurs. I get that question from everyone. And the answer is not clear, right? Because it's evolving. The acceptance of owning who you are and what you want in life is finally becoming something that is okay and acceptable to talk about, let alone acknowledge. It's okay to own our Blackness for the first time ever. You're speaking to someone who grew up here in New York City, going to a private school from self-made, first-generation successful parents, and successful in their eyes, probably not in the eyes of society. A father who came from Alexandria, Louisiana, which is the smallest little town near Baton Rouge, and was part of the migration of folks who went to South Central LA. I have a grandmother who lived through the Rodney King riots and refused to move. They were no, they can mess with everybody's house except Ruby Lee's. They did not mess with Ruby Lee's house. I learned ownership from my grandmother, let's be very clear. And my mom, she was an Air Force brat. She created her career in PR, actually working at Essence. And it's funny because I was recently given an award for being a Black woman in media, and my best friend that I grew up with went up to do my introduction. I had no idea what she was going to say. And she goes, "I've been watching Lauren wait for her moment to own it since we were in 6th grade." And I was like, wow, like where does this story go? And I didn't have Kleenex, and it was a little bit of a disaster. But in the end, she ended up saying, and it was so interesting how that for her came full circle. She goes, I watched Lauren's mom, Audrey, work at Essence back in the day, and I would always come up to the apartment, and like on the coffee table were like a whole year's worth of Essence magazines, like cascading. And she's like, and I felt, and she never told me this, she's like, I felt that it was okay to be a strong Black woman, like it was cool. And this is before, again, we had Black Girl Magic, before we had Black Excellence, before we had Black Women in Genius, before we had GeenieBoxes, before any of these things. And so I guess it's kind of always been ingrained in me and who I am and what I believe in. And when I think back to the way that I was raised, and I have people saying to me now, well, how does it feel to own being the only woman on a board like the Met, the youngest one on a board at any of the places that I sit on the boards at? Or how does it feel to have a seat at the table? I don't feel like it's a table that I shouldn't be at, right? I really don't. And people say, well, where did you get that? Where did you get that? I'm like, well, I don't really know what that is, but just try being Black and growing up in New York in the 80s and the 90s. It'll kind of do it to you, you know? And so I've always owned who I am and every opportunity. I know that the time is a-ticking, and so I'm gonna wrap it up by just saying that I think it is so important for us now more than ever to own every opportunity that comes our way. I'm so tired of hearing people say, oh, well, I don't think I should be doing this because so-and-so thinks I have an in. Show me someone else who doesn't look like you, who doesn't have an in, and who's not taking it, first of all. Second of all, I'm tired of hearing our people, our amazing women say, oh, well, I don't want to say that I went to such and such or worked at such and such because I don't really want to deal with all the questions. I'm sorry, I'll take your Harvard degree, your Stanford degree. Any of y'all with Ivy League degrees, can you raise your hands, please? I'll take all of them, okay? Because I don't have one, but I own that too. And so I believe in finding the opportunities that are going to help you accelerate your life and your career. I believe that this room is super powerful and full of women who you may know or may not know well enough, who can help you own the opportunity that you want in the future. And I urge all of you to do that because this is our time. This is really, truly our time. It's our time for ourselves. It's our time for our children to show them what's possible. I always say to people that as a single mom, people say, how do you travel? How do you do it? Well, I've never had children that actually grab me by the ankle at the front door and say, Mommy, don't go. Quite the converse. I have kids that say, go, Mommy, that's so dope. Like, what are you bringing us back? And I think it's all, hey, it works for me. And I own the moment. So, I think we all have to find what works for us. And this is our time to own it and to own every opportunity and to create the future that we want and the futures that we deserve and to stop apologizing for wanting to be excellent. Okay, I think there's time for one question. We've got time for one question. Anyone? Yeah. Oh. It's okay, you can go. I know her. That was a sympathy hand raise, in case nobody else raised their hand. I'm just joking.
What sparked your interest in tech, and how were you able to get involved with Gen Y?
So her question, for those of you who didn't hear it, was how was I able to get involved in technology, and how did I get involved with Gen Y Capital? So in short, my first business was a vineyard in Monticello, Virginia, on a 126-acre farm that I turned into a vineyard, sold grapes for to other wineries for 2 years that were making gold and double gold vineyard designate wines out of my fruit. And then I ended up self-funding the build out of a winery and a tasting room. I say that to say that I joke, but in all seriousness, I watched grapes grow for years. It is the boringest, most ridiculous thing you could ever want to do with your life. It's not that sexy. It's really not that cool. Everyone's like, oh, you've got wine. Yeah, that part's cool and cute, but it takes 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 months to get to that point where you have anything good in a bottle that you actually want to drink. And like all the other time it's like pulling your hair out. And so it wasn't until I sold that business when I was 26 that tech was starting here in New York. So this was in 2011 when we didn't even call this Silicon Alley. There wasn't a place for technology. We didn't have General Assembly. Like the idea of co-working was non-existent. People were working in Starbucks and their friends' kitchens. I mean, like a lot has happened in the last 6 years. And so this idea of angel investing was really fascinating to me. This idea that I didn't have to necessarily build every company myself, but I could take some of my money and start investing in other people that I thought were really promising was like eye-opening. It was literally day and night. And the fact that these people could, instead of watching grapes grow, go get a laptop and build a deck and go raise $1 million or $2 million, I was like, what the heck have I been doing? Let's change this. I think I'm still young enough to kind of change the trajectory of my life. And so that's what I ended up doing. I started angel investing in technology, and I didn't know anything about tech. What I did know was about marketing and brand strategy and building businesses. I knew how to have hustle and drive. I knew how to be super resourceful. And so I actually, in my book, I call it Reciprocal Mentorship. So I was going in and I was mentoring these startups, and I was saying, this is what we need to do on the marketing and brand side. And this is like, again, 6 years ago. We needed frictionless onboarding, which basically meant, back in the day when you could log in and it would go, just sign in with your Twitter or your Facebook instead of like filling out a whole profile, right? They're like, okay, well, we'll have that ready in 12 weeks. I'm like, 12 weeks? Like, does it take that long to like build that button? Can't you just like abracadabra? And so I then started learning in the Ruby on Rails, and I don't code, but I had no idea how intricate it was to make like a marketer's dream come true on the tech side. And so that's how I learned about tech. And then through angel investing and co-investing with my partners and my co-founders of Gen Y Capital, we started Gen Y. Okay, thank you. I'm being kicked off the stage. Thank you so much. And I'm leaving to go be a single mom. So I am leaving, but I don't want anyone to think that I'm running out on them. So I adore all of you, and I'll be on Twitter or any other like social media platform to answer any questions. So thank you so much.